Greetings and great things. It is Q Talks here once again, and today I have a interesting but beautiful topic as always. One that hopefully you guys will relate to. Today we are talking about a lack of compassion, the empath who is never empathized with, a black swan tale. Because I think if you resonate with this community as a black swan, this is part of the experience or part of something that you will have experienced or can resonate with and relate to. And that is the fact that we talk a lot about empathy in this world, right? But what's not often discussed is what happens when the empath doesn't receive any empathy and is not empathized with. I have my notes here as per usual, but I will also just be, trying to not stick to them too much and just talk about the topic at hand. So let's get into it. This is for the people, such as myself, who find themselves often understanding, but rarely being understood. Okay? And we all can know or imagine what happens as a result of that. If you're always the one understanding people, yet you're rarely being understood, it ends up becoming unequal, right? It becomes something that is unbalanced and it starts to create a fracture in your relationships with others and your relationship to yourself. When you are a black swan, because you are strong, people forget that you need softness too, right? And to tie this into the analogy of being a black swan, when I saw a black swan on the water, which is what inspired me to come to this point and to look into, the meaning and stuff, as I have explained before. One of the things that stood out to me was how much this creature looks so different to its companions, the rest of its family. The way it stands out, the way it stands apart, right? But it is still a swan. Now, let's say if we were to turn this into a tale, an example, a conversation, this black swan being so rare, being so unique, being so different, other swans on the lake could often approach that black swan for advice, right? How do you deal with standing out? Oh, how do you do it? You're a black swan. You can't blend in with the rest of us. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with feeling different, with being different? How do you deal with life? And this black swan may be happy to give its advice and to, let these other swans know how its experience has shaped it. And by sharing that, it may give some useful advice for these swans. But at the end of the day, do any of these other swans really empathize with that black swan? Do they Are they able to empathize? Because first of all, they have never lived that experience, so they might sympathize. They might feel sorry for the black swan, like, oh, sorry that you were born like this. Sorry that your experience is so different. Sorry that you're so, rare, unique, whether you want to be that or not. But at the end of the day, there's only so much empathy that these other swans can extend to the black swan. Why? Because they do not live that black swan's experience. They do not generally or necessarily relate to the black swan, although they may be able to feel related to by the black swan, right? Receive advice from the black swan. They themselves could not put themselves in the shoes of the black swan. Now take that analogy and apply it to your life. I'm sure you have lived and experienced that. You're able to be there for people, you're able to advise people, to understand people, to empathize with people, and be compassionate with others. But because of how complex, rare, unique, different you are, and your life experience has been, it is a stretch to expect others to be able to do that for you, and it is a stretch for others to be able to do that for you. It is a struggle for others to be able to do that to you. Why? Because you are a black swan, because of how rare and unique you are. Back to my notes. This creates a paradox, as I mentioned already, because when the empath is constantly expected, right, to absorb, to forgive, to regulate others' emotions, and to stay composed, whether that's in friendship, relationships, family relationships and circumstances, work, general day to day life, continuously, constantly, over time, this is unsustainable. And this ends up in that empath becoming emotionally neglected. Why? Because when you are the safe one, when you are the safe space, when you are the one that others come to for a sense of clarity, right? They believe that you possess that innately and constantly. So, therefore, not only do others not necessarily tend to extend or attempt to regulate you, they also find it difficult to even understand how to do so. Why? Because they are the ones coming to you when they need that. That means they see you as the source. They don't see themselves as being able to provide that for themselves alone or for another person, but they see you as being able to do that. So therefore, they don't expect you to necessarily need that. That is the paradox. Society mistakes emotional intelligence for emotional invincibility. Yet we know that we are all human. We all need and deserve compassion, grace, understanding, empathy, right? Vulnerability. So, where does this take us? For me, I have been in this circumstance in so many ways, and in the last 2 years, it has dawned on me in a way that has been like undeniable because of what I went through with the passing of my mother, my family, and how they responded to me during that, and how I've now had to continue to show up on a day to day basis. People think you're strong and they tell you you're strong instead of supporting you because you are, again, seen as somebody who is emotionally invincible. And because of that, in the moments and the times when you do show vulnerability, when you do need help, when you do require compassion, you are instead often met with silence, judgment, or expectation, because that is what I experienced when I was struggling deeply to deal with the deterioration of my mother, which was what was leading to her death, which I was sensing and picking up on, but unable to process, comprehend, and completely relay to others. I, in turn, was judged and shamed for expressing that I was incapable and unable to shoulder the responsibility that I was feeling, that I was carrying, that I was feeling burdened. This is something that other people could not understand. And that shocked and hurt me because I thought that I would receive help when I needed it. Yet, on the contrary, I received judgment. I eventually received help, but that's because I had to advocate for myself repeatedly and very adamantly. And that is something that you are going to have to do as a black swan. And it's not easy, and it doesn't come easy, especially when you are so naturally empathetic because of the experiences that you've had, because of the way that you view people and the way that you relate to others. It is almost natural for you to automatically consider others and how things will impact them, how they will feel, and to almost override and bypass your own needs and feelings because you have become so good at operating at what others would perceive to be an optimal level without having your needs met, without being empathized with, and while still being able to extend that to others, especially because you know what it's like not to have that. So you don't want others to feel that. So you give and you care and you're there and you listen and you hear and you feel deeply. Because of this, other people fail to realize and to recognize that you yourself will and do deserve that same grace. And when people see that you are now suddenly weak, not strong, it changes their perception of you because instead of them feeling sorry for you, they want to tell you that this is not who you are, that you don't feel like that and you don't get to feel like that because you're the strong person. You're the one who's always listening and being there for others. So it doesn't mean that that they're thinking of themselves why they don't want you to feel like that, right? But unfortunately, that's how it kind of plays out because the way that you receive others in their pain, in their vulnerability, it's difficult for the others to receive you in the same way. They want to hurry up and see you get better and be strong because if you're weak, if you're incapable, what does that make them and who do they go to? Now, they might not be thinking of it as deeply as that, but in a way, when you consider human psychology and the way we all are with each other, that's what it comes down to. But that's why worry and fret not. You have me. and I understand you, and we have this safe place where you are felt and your experience is known, understood, and empathized with. And you have all the space here to share what it is that you need to share. Whether you want to tell me that in a comment, whether you want to message me, just know that I feel you because I was there myself, like I said, very recently. You don't need, you know, what I want to like really touch on here is the fact that you don't need to suffer because this lack of compassion that you continue to receive or feel that you are receiving from your environment, it can break you. You don't have to keep showing up, being strong, smiling, being there when you know you don't feel like that is your own experience. Yes, it's good that you are there for others, but it's not good when you're there for others at a detriment to yourself. When you start to consistently find yourself stuck in patterns of hyper independence, which is something that I deal with and something that I sometimes still have to check in on myself with. When you find these things happening, you find yourself emotionally shutting down, being unable to ask for help, not having a safe space, a vulnerable space, even if that's just one person who knows and understands what you have been through and how you have struggled. And I'm not just talking about what's happening in your day to day or how your day went wrong. I'm even talking about the difficult battles and the things that you've had to overcome in the last month, week, years that you don't speak to other people about because you don't think it matters and you don't think they care and you are too busy listening to them and being there for them. That's the stuff I'm talking about. When you don't have not one person who knows about this, who's there for you, who supports you, who encourages you, who you can go to for help, when you internalize your pain, you blame yourself for feeling pain, for not being stronger, for hurting, for feeling weak instead of expressing this, you are teaching yourself that others are more important than you. Even if you tell yourself it's because you're stronger than others, you're still teaching yourself that your voice is not as important and worth listening to. This is not the truth. This is not the case, and this is not okay. And even if you continue not to tell others what is going on, you must know and tell yourself that you are worth it and that you are important. And that even if you don't make anybody else listen, you're going to listen to yourself and you're going to make yourself a priority. It's good to be able to self-soothe yourself, but when that self-soothing becomes certain things, certain vices, certain circumstances or situations, because you know that if not for those things, you are not going to receive soothing from anyone else or anyone or anywhere else. You have to transform. This is where I believe you really start to realize again and you start to become confronted with the realization that you are a black swan, right? And that you have to know this and that you have to know what you're going to do about it. your pain starts to become perception, and your isolation starts to become depth, because you need to see these things in a different way. You need to feel these things in a different way. And not only can you see the benefit and the gift from it, you also have to understand why it is happening and how, in some ways, it's not fair to you. When I was watching my mom die in front of me, feeling her disappear, and I realized that the only reason that I was finding myself in this circumstance that was completely unbearable and destroying me from the inside out, and that I felt that I was in it alone and dealing with it alone, was because of how, in many ways, I have not needed more. So people don't realize that something like this is beyond my capacity, because I have always shown so much capacity, right? And ability, that the only way that people can really truly understand and see that this is no longer viable, feasible for me, is when I do break. It's unfortunate, but when you realize that you can't keep pouring from an empty cup, that you being compassionate without any reciprocity, any reciprocation, becomes self abandonment and you abandoning yourself, that is when you realize that your empathy is not for everybody and your compassion needs to include yourself. In those moments was when I realized that it doesn't matter how much I want to be there for my mom right now, if being there for her is going to destroy me. It doesn't matter how much other people are telling me that I can be there for her and that I can deal with this, if dealing with it is destroying me and nobody is realizing that but me. I want to encourage you. That was deep, by the way, guys. I know it was very deep, but it's the truth. And I give you my example because I want you to understand how serious it is and how far it can go. And I'm sure you've been in situations like this yourself, so you can share them if you want. But if you are that person all the time, nobody will be that person for you, and nobody will expect you to require that person, even if you think that, oh, they will be there for me, or when I'm at my low, people will understand that they won't. You have to be the first one to understand and to know and to recognize when enough is enough. You have to learn to shift into empowerment and to reclaim compassion for yourself. Your compassion cannot keep going out to others when you secretly know inside that you are lacking this and you are not receiving this. Shift this immense amount of compassion and power that you have, the ability that you have to be there for so many other people despite not having that yourself. Do you know how powerful that is? Shift that inwards. Turn it to yourself so that you can be empowered, so that you can learn and really exercise boundaries. And it's hard, guys. It's so hard. people talk about boundaries, but they don't talk about how difficult it is to genuinely enforce them and keep them up. When you turn your compassion towards yourself and you stop expecting it to come from external sources, because it won't, not until you turn it towards yourself first. When you learn boundaries, you start choosing where your empathy goes and where and when it goes there. When you allow people to misunderstand you instead of over explaining yourself or overly trying to be there for them so that they don't think that you're not there, or they don't. When you give yourself what others can't, what others couldn't, what others refuse to give you, and what others will not give to you, when you start to give that to yourself, that is when this loop of being the empath who is never empathized with, it ends. Because black swans, we don't beg to be understood, okay? We are selective. And we get to choose who we understand, when we understand, and we get to choose who and how we want to be understood. But it starts by first understanding yourself. I stopped forcing myself to suffer alone and to feel like it was okay when I knew it wasn't. And that is when I started receiving friends and people in my life who empathize with me even when I struggle to show my vulnerabilities, who advocate for me and encourage me to advocate for myself, who speak life into me, who see me no matter how much of myself I may try to hide or not show. If you have been this empath, right, who has never been empathized with, understand and know that I see you. Your softness, it was never a flaw. Please know that, and don't even take this video as that, because I know what it feels like to start to wonder if something is wrong with you because of how much you care, you're able to care, and you still care and want to care despite the fact that it feels like no one cares about themselves, about each other, about you. Your softness is not a flaw. Your empathy is not a flaw. But your healing begins when you turn your compassion inward. To sympathize means to feel sorry for, right? To empathize means to place yourself in the shoes of, to relate to. And you have to be able to do that for yourself, because it becomes scary when you're able to continuously do that for others and you feel like nobody's doing that for you. It's because that power that I said that you have, like I said, this power to be able to continuously do this for others, a large part of it is for you too. It's not just for everyone else. Duh. Okay? So turn it in on yourself. Love yourself, empathize with yourself, care for yourself, be compassionate to yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. Trust me, I know you're being hard on yourself because I do it, and I be doing it. So you can't tell me, oh, I'm not even being hard, or I need to be harder on myself. Stop it. Okay? I love you. I care for you. I empathize with you, and everything that you've been through that hurt you, that tormented you, destroyed you, violated you. You did not deserve it. You did not deserve any of that. And I will always be here to feel you and to keep this space open for us so that we know that we are empathized with here, that we are resonated with, understood here, that compassion lives here, okay? But I want you to still do what you need to do for yourself so you can go out into the world and receive what you deserve. My beautiful, rare, unique Black Swan. I love you. Take care. Until the next one. Bye bye.